Discover the touching journey of a homeless girl who transforms an unconscious billionaire's life. Mia crouched in the shadows of a park, the biting wind clawing at her skin, clutching her sketchbook like a lifeline. The city lights danced around her, illuminating the world she felt alienated from. Just the night before, she was wrapped in the warmth of her mother's love, deep in a dream of a better life. Now, those memories felt like sinking stones, dragging her deeper into a cold reality. She was 17, but the burden of her circumstances aged her beyond her years. Her dreams swirled around in a cacophony of vivid colors and emotion. She wanted to believe something would break the monotony of survival. Struggling to stay awake, she closed her eyes, fighting the creeping dread of another sleepless night. The world deemed her invisible, yet she fought to be heard through the lines of her pencil. Each stroke transformed her pain into art, a glimpse into a life that felt as distant as the stars. But fear clawed at her insides. What if her voice was lost? What if no one ever saw her work? This fear smothered her hope, urging her to retreat into the hollows of despair. As she opened her eyes to the encroaching fog, a sharp gasp broke her thoughts. An unconscious figure lay sprawled on the bench ahead. His tailored suit was out of place among the discarded possessions scattered around the park. Curiosity twisted her insides. Was he one of them? She approached cautiously, heart racing, conflicted. This man could be rich, a billionaire, or a murderer? What did it matter? Her stomach grumbled again, reminding her of the pizza she'd forfeited days ago, the one she could have traded for a moment of warmth. Call for help? The thought danced around her mind, but before she could retreat, something in his vulnerability tugged at her heart. This man, defined by an identity oozing wealth that she'd always resented, lay there, devoid of everything, a mirror of her own isolation. But then annoyance flashed through her. For all his privilege, he was still just another person weaving through life, losing sight of humanity amid gluttony. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Mia's instincts wrestled with the moment. Should she walk away or stay? Her breaths quickened, mind racing, as she crossed boundaries into emotional territory she had been trained to avoid. Was she really prepared to offer compassion? And yet, here she was. Standing over him, the pull of humanity eroded the wall she had built around her heart. With every moment spent beside him on that bench, Mia's fear morphed as she fought her own demons. The fear of letting anyone in, the fear of being rejected. As days turned to weeks, the ache inside became a tempest. She wanted to be the one to wake him, to peel back the layers of wealth and isolation that clouded his existence. In sharing their stories, could love flourish against the odds? But the tightrope of their connection frayed, torn by whispers from his world, forcing him to question the worth of fleeting moments she provided. The weight of status loomed larger, casting shadows over her vibrant dreams to expose a society built on privilege. As resentment brewed within her, Mia could feel the stakes rising. A choice loomed ahead, one that could either ignite her fires or crush everything she had built. She had to brace herself. Would the flame of her hope be enough to kindle his humanity? Mia's heartbeat echoed in her ears as she remained on the bench, the chill of the air a stark contrast against her building warmth of resolve. She was no longer just a spectator in this city of dreams. She was a participant, caught between the harsh realities of her life and the fragile threads of hope she had woven through her art. With a deep breath, she nudged the man awake, her heart fluttering with uncertainty. His eyelids fluttered for a moment before they opened, revealing a pair of bewildered but striking blue eyes. He blinked up at her, confusion etched across his face. She couldn't calculate the worth of the attraction she felt, whether it was pure humanity or merely the desperation for connection. "Are you okay?" she whispered, the words rehearsed in her head but now teetering on the cusp of something greater. "What happened?" he murmured, the smooth cadence of his voice suddenly grounding her. "You were sleeping here," she stammered, fighting the instinct to recoil from his elegant gaze. "Sleeping?" he echoed, testing the word on his lips. "Why'd you help me?" The question drilled deep into her insecurities. Why did she help? Was it pity, or was it something much more terrifying, an awakening of compassion where once scorn had reigned? "Because you looked lost," she finally managed, despite feeling her own navigation of life had gone largely astray. He shifted, leaning up on one elbow, eyes narrowing as he took in her tattered clothes and weary frame. "And you're not?" There it was, the burn of truth so sharp it felt like a physical blow. How could she articulate the depths of her struggle without spiraling into bitterness? Pivoting the conversation was critical. She needed to pave a new path, not rest in despair. "What's your name?" he finally asked, the abrupt transition shifting the weight of her introspection. "Mia," she replied, a slight tremor in her voice as she tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Philip," he said, extending a hand that seemed impossibly out of place. Their hands clasped briefly, a connection almost electric. "Mia," she repeated softly, her heart thumping under the weight of expectation. Days turned into a crude blur, conversations between fleeting glances, a shared meal, laughter dipping into the mix of their disparate worlds. Mia began drawing him, her pencil crafting interpretations of his vulnerabilities, uncovering the layers of isolation he hid beneath the polished facade. With each stroke, she felt emboldened. Revealing his vulnerabilities brought clarity to her own tangled existence. Yet, as their bond deepened, the clarity became a double-edged sword. Conflicting emotions swirled within her as the disparity in their lives shadowed every moment. His world, with its privileges and faceless suits, contrasted harshly with her struggle for survival, igniting the embers of resentment once more. She watched as Philip would sometimes drift into silence, looking through her but seemingly miles away, trapped in his thoughts about responsibilities that grew heavier by the minute. Her heart ached at the reminder that their realities were etched in iron, bound by social status and invisible chains. "Mia!" Philip's voice cut through her reflection one afternoon as they sat in their making, his frustration palpable. "If we're going to do this, you need to tell me. Your art, it's like you're screaming, but no one hears you." The notion sent an electric shock through her. He didn't know the half of it. The weight of revelation loomed, pulling at the seams of her emerging self. She faced the truth about what these moments with him represented, an opportunity to rise above mediocrity, to capture her voice in the cacophony of the world, or risk losing herself within the void of indignation and anguish. But as she replied, a thought nagged at her, that perhaps their intersection wasn't merely coincidental. It was a call to confront not only Philip's hidden truths, but also to unravel her fears. And even as she embraced the challenge, shadows of doubt whispered, warning her of the risks involved. The moment finally arrived when she had to weigh giving him everything she'd built against the fear of abandonment. Would she risk her heart if it meant pushing back against a life that felt too insurmountable? The choice slipped through her fingers like sand, one that could either shatter her progress or ignite something irrevocably transformative. What happened next would change the course for both of them. Would she have the courage to cross that metaphorical line? Would it even matter? Staring into his eyes, Mia understood it was time to confront not just his humanity, but her own. And in that moment of reckoning, she felt the jagged edges of the world begin to fray, making way for a clarity only courage could unlock. Mia's breath hitched in her throat as she felt the weight of his inquiry. The fragile threads weaving through her, thoughts quivered with the possibility of truth, raw and undiluted. She swallowed hard, sensing a pivotal moment, the convergence of vulnerability and bravery. "Philip," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "you're right, my art, it's a part of me, and I've spent so long hiding parts of myself behind it." The admission brought the heat of embarrassment to her cheeks, but there was also a liberation that spiraled through her chest. "What do you mean?" he prompted, his gaze intense and almost pleading. "It's not just about what I draw. It's about who I am, or who I feel I can't be. I paint my fears, my anger, my hopes, but they end up being just splatters on paper instead of a voice that speaks." The honesty felt like shedding skin, exposing something vulnerable that had lain dormant for too long. Philip regarded her, his brow furrowed as if grappling with the magnitude of her confession. "But you said you're more than just your art. You have a voice beyond it." A brief flicker of hope ignited in her chest as she locked onto his vulnerability. Perhaps he saw more in her than she saw in herself. "I guess I'm just scared to share it, scared of how the world will receive it." What if I helped? The thought hung in the air between them, electrifying and terrifying. What if we partnered on something, showcase your artwork, but showcase you too, your story? Her pulse raced at the idea, a tantalizing blend of fear and excitement curling in her stomach. She could feel the gravity of change pressing upon her. Could she really stand in the light for once? But doubts crept in. What would she do with that kind of exposure? What if her past defined her in a way that left her trapped in the shadows? "Mia, your journey has power," Philip urged, the sincerity in his voice grounding her. "It holds weight. Others could learn from it too." "Are you sure?" Her words tumbled out, drenched in skepticism. What did Philip know about the complexities of her struggles? "What if I'm not ready?" she continued, the anxiety bubbling over as her mind spiraled into self-doubt. "Then we take it one step at a time," he insisted, leaning closer, his intensity only matched by her trepidation. "You get to control the narrative. We'll build this together." The thought was intoxicating, the freedom to dictate her representation. But would it herald a creation that heralded her story, or magnify her vulnerabilities in ways she couldn't handle? "But what about you?" she asked, suddenly wary of how their upcoming journey would meld. Would she serve as a quiet backdrop to his overwhelming presence? Would her truth be overshadowed or celebrated? He smiled, but the weight of his responsibilities fell over them like a dark cloud. "If we're doing this, it's a leap for both of us. I need to break through my own barriers too. Let's not." Their journeys, she composed herself, determined to embrace the idea of interconnectivity in their stories. The cafe where they agreed to meet buzzed with life, the scent of fresh pastries and coffee filling the air. Mia found a corner table and waited, fiddling with her ring nervously. When Philip walked in, a confident smile on his face, her anxiety dissipated slightly. He seemed invigorated, practically shimmering with anticipation. "Mia, I can't believe we're doing this," he declared, settling in front of her. His enthusiasm was contagious, energizing her restless spirit. "I am too," she replied, though inside she could feel her stomach twist with uncertainty. "But do you think people will resonate with our stories?" "I know they will," he said with conviction. "We have to be authentic. Our fears, our hopes, they're universal. If we show the process, the struggle, it'll give others permission to share their own. His faith stirred something deep within her, igniting a flicker of hope amid her doubts. As they dove into planning, a gradual shift occurred. With each idea shared, Mia's voice grew stronger, her vision clearer. She proposed combining multimedia and installation pieces, creating a dialogue through her art and their narratives. Suddenly, her art wasn't just about her anymore. It became a vessel to carry both of their stories. Yet, as they discussed logistics, an uncomfortable reality nagged at the edges of her thoughts. Would Philip's unresolved struggles coexist harmoniously with her own? Her art had always served as a balm to contain her inner chaos, but now it felt as if exposing this entangled journey would unveil more than she bargained for. Their creative energy spiraled around them, but fear clung to her like a suffocating blanket. "What if people question my past? What if they see me only as fragile?" she asked, the vulnerability of sharing her pain crossing her mind again. "Mia, that's exactly what makes you powerful. You've fought to be here. You're not fragile, you're resilient," Philip reassured her. "And remember, we're in this together." They continued to sketch ideas and plans, sharing laughs and moments of genuine connection. Yet in the quiet spaces between their conversations, the realization that both their pasts were poised to be exposed loomed large. The more they built, the more she wondered if she was truly ready to dismantle the walls she had so carefully erected. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow throughout the cafe, Mia stood at the precipice of choice. Would revealing her life story make her stronger? Or would it expose her insecurities to the world, fracturing what little control she had left? With this pressing question echoing in her mind, she pushed aside the remnants of doubt that lingered like shadows, braced to venture deeper into her own narrative. Yet, as she closed her eyes to visualize her next steps, a sobering thought crashed against her newfound resolve. Could they truly navigate the complexities of both their pasts without losing themselves in their malaise? Process? The moment to unravel their truths was approaching quickly, but the stakes had never been higher. Would the revelations break or embolden them both? Mia stood on the precipice, the cafe's atmosphere thrumming with energy, yet she felt a quiet conflict bubbling within her. The sun had dipped lower, casting elongated shadows that felt like an omen. It wasn't merely about the partnership with Philip anymore. It was about the unveiling of her past, a past that had grown thorny and overgrown, yet still intertwined with her identity. Awash with adrenaline, Mia began visualizing the art pieces she wanted to create, the settings, the ambiance, and the profound messages they would convey. She was stepping into uncharted territory, and it sparked a deep-seated exhilaration hidden beneath the layers of her trepidation. Leaning forward, she sketched the outline of a crucible, elements of both their traumas melting into one, forming a new narrative entirely. However, the idea of merging both their stories was daunting. Philip's smile brightened the room around them, contrasting with the dark thoughts clouding her mind. Her fingers itched to sketch, but a nagging feeling tugged at her. Was this truly the path she wanted to walk? Would exposing her vulnerabilities tarnish her art, or liberate it? "Hey, are you with me?" Philip's voice sliced through her spiral of thoughts. Mia blinked, shaking off her mental fog. "Sorry, what if they don't accept the stories we tell? What if it shatters the carefully constructed notions of who we are?" They might not. But whether they do or they don't, that's their journey, not ours, Philip replied, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed behind his head. There was an infectious bravado in him that she envied. We have to focus on our truths, even if they're not palatable to outsiders. His words sparked a flame of realization. The control she desperately clung to was an illusion. The fear of judgment prisoned her. It was time she reflected on what liberation truly meant for her. Could this project be a means to transcend her insecurities? Everything she had built was meant to showcase beauty, transformation. Perhaps she could apply that to herself. "Okay," she breathed out, emboldened. "Let's do it." They spent hours brainstorming, sketching ideas, mapping out installations, each plan strengthening her voice and revealing fragments of herself she had long buried. It felt as if they were architects of their redemption. For every block of doubt she upheld, Philip unveiled a part of himself, a confession to match her revelation, and it cultivated a growing trust between them. But as exhilaration coursed through her, a sinking realization emerged. Was she merely stitching together scraps of herself for an audience? What if, in the process, she lost the essence of what her art meant before? What if unveiling her truth created a rift rather than bridging their narratives? The day ended, leaving her at a crossroads. Each brush stroke, each shared story would demand her layers of vulnerability, piece by piece. The more she crafted their tale, the clearer it became that her truths were not just threads to be woven, they were the very fabric of her resilience. That night, Mia lay in bed, the weight of potential pressing down on her. She could feel the heat of uncertainty transforming into a flame of determination. It was a deep calling to confront not just the past she feared, but the future she could forge. Amid the anxiety, a new conviction began to pulse within her. This wasn't simply a project, it was a reclamation of her voice, her narrative, her very identity. Her heart raced, for tomorrow would bring challenges far beyond artistic boundaries. As the dawn broke, illuminating her room, Mia welcomed it as an opportunity for an awakening, not just for her art, but for her spirit. The real question lay ahead. How much of herself would she truly dare to expose? In that uncertainty, one thought lingered, sharp and vivid. The time had come to face not only the world, but the relentless shadows from her past. Would she emerge victorious, or would old fears ensnare her anew? Mia felt a weight lifting as the sun's rays slipped through her window, a promise of clarity amidst the fog of yesterday's doubts. She dressed methodically, each piece of clothing more of a psychological armor than mere fabric. Today was not about hiding. Today was about discovery, about setting forth into the uncharted territory of her vulnerabilities. In her heart, excitement tangled with anxiety as she prepared herself for the collaboration with Philip, eager but terrified of what it would demand from her. The cafe buzzed as she entered, but Mia's focus narrowed to the table where she and Philip had first questioned their artistic boundaries. He was already there, sipping coffee, flipping through sketches with the kind of enthusiasm that both inspired and intimidated her. Every line he drew seemed to harbor an untold story, an exploration of trauma she was only beginning to comprehend. "Morning!" Philip's smile wove a welcome that eased her initial apprehension. "I've been thinking about the installations. What if we played with light? Shadows could embody our struggles, revealing only parts of the story at once." As she listened, Mia couldn't help but admire the confidence in his voice. It was a stark contrast to her swirling insecurities. "I love that," she replied cautiously, sounding far less certain than she felt inside. "But what if the shadows become too overwhelming? What if they obscure the art instead of enhancing it? Good artists aren't afraid of shadows, Mia. They use them to deepen the light," he said, his eyes holding a steadfast belief she wished to share. Yet as she nodded, uncertainty flickered within her. Would her shadows dim her narrative instead of illuminating it? Mia sat, breathing deeply, and examined the sketches strewn across the table. Each drew from a part of their shared pain, each stroke of the pencil marking not just an artistic endeavor, but a personal reckoning. The air thickened with possibilities, every idea a potential doorway to catharsis or despair. "Let's be raw," she suddenly blurted out, spurred by an unexpected surge of conviction. "Let's not shy away from the pain, the mistakes, the confusion that comes with healing. That's the spirit, Philip leaned forward, clearly energized. We can't hide behind pretty colors or perfect lines. If we do, we're not telling the truth. The truth. The very word resonated deep within her. What had she sacrificed in her previous works to create art that everyone deemed acceptable? What had she ignored for fear of judgment? In those moments, Mia made a choice that felt as jagged as the truths she wished to unveil. She would be unapologetically herself, for better or worse. However, that choice bore weight. As they hashed out their ideas, Mia felt the canvas of her identity trembling. She painstakingly sifted through memories, exhilarating but agonizing. The time she had felt solely defined by her scars, each recounting stirring a tempest within her. Would this artistic exploration transcend mere vulnerability if she embraced her narrative fully? Or would it bind her tighter into a past that had long overshadowed her present? As the hours melted away, Mia unfolded from her shell, divulging fragments of herself she had long buried. Philip, in turn, revealed his own complexities, their stories intertwining like fraying threads woven together. With every shared layer, she felt the bonds between them tightening, but not without a hint of fear. What if the truth they crafted collapsed under the very weight of their revelations? Determination shaped her resolve, resolving beneath her skin. Today marked a step toward not just artistic expression, but also personal reclamation. She grasped the fear of self-doubt and turned it into fuel, ready to push onward, not just for the project, but for her own rebirth. Yet as she prepared to leave the cafe, a flicker of dread surged. The choice she had made rang louder than she anticipated. To confront the world with her most fragile identity. What if tomorrow's revelations broke her completely? Would she emerge more whole? Or would the shadows surround her again, threatening to engulf her? In that moment, the future held a wavering balance, one that felt irrevocably poised between the revelation of self and an overwhelming plunge into transparency. Tomorrow awaited, pregnant with potential, but also teeming with the unresolved echoes of the past. How much of her would she lose in the process? Would she be ready to embrace that risk? Mia's restless night drifted into morning, and with it came an anxious resolve. She lingered over her breakfast, slumped at the kitchen table, the gravity of her choices heavy in the air. Today was more than a collaboration. It was a reckoning. Steeling herself, she replayed her last conversation with Philip in her mind, his palpable excitement nudging her toward a leap she hadn't yet quantified. Shadows and light would be their battleground. But in Mia's eyes, those shadows loomed larger than her ambition. She arrived at the studio with her sketchbook, pages fluttering like unanchored leaves. There was an unsettling resonance between the vulnerability she planned to unveil and the underlying fear of having it perceived as weakness. Each step echoed her hesitation. Each brush of paint crafted a persona she wasn't sure she could inhabit. Philip greeted her with warmth, but he seemed different today, more focused, almost intense. Let's set the tone. I want to create a series that challenges the viewer, but also invites them to connect. He pointed at a tactile canvas smeared with charcoal and raw sienna. What do you see? Mia studied the chaotic blend of hues representing the shadows she feared. It's dark, explosive, almost unsettling. Exactly. It pulls you in, right? The chaos is part of the beauty. He radiated enthusiasm, but Mia could feel her heart race. Would her own chaos be as celebrated? To find grounding, she flipped her sketchbook to an empty page and began sketching furiously, attempting to replicate the energy that crackled around them. As she worked, her mind flooded with images of her past, the scattered shards of her familial relationships, the lingering judgments from former critics, the scars that etched her skin and her spirit. It was like staring into a mirror reflecting a mosaic of shame and defiance. "You're alive in this piece," Philip remarked, peering over her shoulder. "See how you capture turmoil? That could resonate with so many." His words caused a tiny spark of recognition. Perhaps her messiness was not something to hide, but something to showcase as artistry. Taking a deep breath, Mia broke her silence. What do we do when the chaos threatens to overwhelm? Philip's brow furrowed. Then we embrace it. That storm within you is your greatest strength. Are you ready to show that? Are you ready to be raw? Could she be ready? The truth hit her hard. Every brush of paint was laced with the fear of being seen fully, of letting her scars tell stories of resilience rather than shame. She clenched her fists, trying to capture the growing dread. Would she betray herself if she revealed those layers? In an impulse-driven moment, she turned her sketch into something daring, a series reflecting pain alongside beauty. We should blend in these gray tones, where shadows serve the purpose of light rather than masking it. Now you're thinking like an artist, Philip exclaimed, his eyes glimmering with inspiration. Let's do it! As they dove into the collaborative effort, shifting between drafting concepts and laying the groundwork for installations, Mia began to feel a shift inside her. With each brushstroke alongside Philip, she discovered an unexpected rhythm, a cadence between their visions that bolstered both her self-esteem and her burgeoning confidence. Yet beneath that swelling pride, doubt festered. What if the audience couldn't grasp her truth? What if they had their own shadows that rendered her attempts as mere echoes lost in noise? The studio became a sanctuary and a battleground, a crucible for her transformation. The air thickened with tension as they sketched and rearranged their thoughts into narrative forms. Every shift tested her limits, the stakes swelling with raw emotion. Each moment dripped with anticipation and fear, cocooning her in doubt, yet drawing her closer to a profound breakthrough. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow around the room, Mia looked at the canvas they created together. It held potential, an invitation to reveal her heart. But the question loomed large. Could she expose the delicate threads that composed her truth without unraveling entirely? Tomorrow was an ascent into the unknown, a step deeper into her personal abyss. Would she choose to leap, or would the shadows pull her back down? The moment of truth loomed. The morning sun streamed through the studio's expansive windows, a harsh reminder that today wasn't just another day of creation, it was a confrontation. Mia stood before the canvas, her own artistic and emotional struggles alive in splashes of paint. Philip was adjusting the positioning of their work, but Mia remained paralyzed, a statue amid the chaotic beauty they'd forged. "Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" Philip's teasing tone barely masked concern. The warmth in his voice was inviting, yet it drew Mia deeper into her internal conflict. How could she confess her unease, especially when he saw the potential in her chaos? "I'm just thinking about what comes next," Mia finally admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "When the chaos threatens to overwhelm, that's when you know you're on the brink of something great," he replied, his unwavering gaze challenging her to confront her fears. Mia's breath caught. What if he was right? Fear had gripped her, whispering tales of inadequacy and failure. Yet here Philip was, nudging her towards a confrontation with her very essence. She felt exposed, raw, as if each stroke on the canvas peeled back not just layers of paint, but layers of herself. Drawing in a deep breath, she challenged herself to embrace her vulnerability. "I have to be honest," she murmured, tilting her head thoughtfully. "I've always feared that I wouldn't be understood, that my own darkness would drown out any light I might bring. What if I share too much of my story?" "Then you'll find those who resonate with your experience," he replied, his sincerity washing over her. "Your journey isn't about them, it's about you channeling your truth, your experience into art. There's power in that authenticity." Mia hesitated. The shadows of her past danced in her mind, a childhood colored by loss, moments of public critique that had scarred her spirit. Would laying that bare before an audience only invite judgment? Encouraged by his belief, she dipped her brush into a deep blue shade, allowing a wave of conflicting emotions to guide her. As she worked, she began to feel an exhilarating shift within her, a fine line where fear transformed into electric possibility. The chaos became a language, a connection. "Sketch out your feelings. Let's see what emerges from that chaos," Philip urged as he prepared more colors, his voice a grounding presence. It was time to let her truth spill forth onto the canvas. With each stroke, memories flowed. Her father's disappointed glances, the judgmental critiques, but also glimmers of resilience, late nights spent painting through tears, the fortitude built during harsh winters when her art was her only warmth. The shades of blue didn't simply represent sorrow, they also began to vibrate with defiance and hope. "See? It's brilliant," Philip flashed a grin, stepping back to study her work. But doubt clawed at her with every praise. What if this brilliance was only obvious to them? For hours they worked side by side, interlacing their visions into a tapestry of emotion. The air thickened with tension, excitement, and apprehension, urging them to spill their realities onto the canvas. Every brushstroke echoed the intensity of their combined vulnerabilities, as if the paint was speaking more than words ever could. As evening approached, the canvas transformed into an exploration of both shadow and light, a tangled yet beautiful representation of experience. Yet Mia felt a swell of anxiety. Were they accurately reflecting her spirit? What if no one wanted to see the darker shades? What loomed at the edge of her mind was the powerful question that haunted her. Did she have the courage to face an audience with this work, her heart draped bare before the world? "Tonight we share this," Philip said, misreading her trepidation as excitement. "This is the starting point for our journey. Tomorrow, let's prep for the exhibition." Mia's pulse quickened at the mention of the exhibition. With one declaration, he had thrown them both into the arena. It mirrored the leap she was terrified to make. Facing herself was monumental enough, but now an audience awaited. Was she truly ready to expose the intricacies of her soul? The unforgiving shadows had yet to relent their grasp. Could she break free, or would she allow the remnants of her past to hold her prisoner, standing on the precipice of her truth? Tomorrow's dawn would demand an answer. Mia could not hide herself any longer. Would she rise or retreat? The stakes were high, and the moment of truth beckoned dangerously close. Mia woke before dawn, the soft light filtering through the window like a whisper of hope. It felt surreal, this moment of clarity sitting in the quiet before a storm. The canvas they had poured themselves into loomed in her mind, a bright beacon of both dread and determination. She could hardly think of the exhibition without her heart racing, an internal war between wanting to be vulnerable and the instinct to shield her true self from scrutiny. Determined to prepare herself for the day, she sat against a wall of the studio shrouded in shadows. As she stretched, her body ached with the tension of the previous day. But somewhere, deep within, a flicker ignited. The obsession to avoid judgment was being challenged, igniting a desire to confront it head-on. This was her artistry, an extension of who she was. In the stillness, she pondered Philip's encouragement. Could the fragmented pieces of her story resonate with others? The fear that had lingered, threatening to engulf her, now felt more like an old acquaintance, one she could acknowledge without succumbing. With a newfound resolve, she grabbed her sketchbook and recounted her feelings, allowing her experiences to flow freely onto the pages, evoking catharsis. The hours slid by as Mia practiced letting her brush move swiftly, no longer hesitating as she tried to recreate the storm within her, a whirlwind of sadness, hope, and revelation. The depth of her darkest moments was no longer simply an obstacle. They could also become a source of strength. Each crafted line pushed her closer to the woman she was meant to be, bold, unfiltered, and alive. Philip arrived, his presence filling the space with an infectious energy. "You know what we need? A whole new color palette for our exhibition," he beamed, scattering splashes of vivid pigments across the table. His excitement was infectious, yet Mia felt a gnawing apprehension. "Philip, do you think people will truly connect with what we've created?" Her question slipped through her lips, tinged with fear. "Of course! They'll see the rawness and authenticity. You're not just showcasing a painting, you're sharing your essence. Trust me." Trust. For the first time, she would attempt to rely on her truths rather than her fears. With every euphoric thought, she felt lighter, lifting the burden of anxiety that had stifled her creativity before. She had built entire walls around her vulnerability to defend against the world, but now it was time to tear them down. As they began to prepare for the exhibition, Mia realized this moment was fundamental. Her entire life had been shaped by the belief that pain could only be addressed in silence. But now, what if she transformed it into connection? She couldn't shake the idea that the exhibition would serve not only as their showcase, but as a rite of passage. In a surprising twist, Mia decided to incorporate elements of her childhood into the installation, shadows of pain and resilience that had defined her existence. This act felt liberating, each stroke affirming her journey rather than hiding it. "Look at this," Philip said, inspecting her new additions with awe. "You've really captured something powerful here, Mia." And yet, shadows of doubt crept back into her mind. What if the past characterized her art, creating division instead of unity with viewers? This fear had the power to dissolve all her courage in a heartbeat. With the day of the exhibition looming ahead, she knew she needed to silence that voice. She reminded herself that sharing her story was an act of defiance against every year of doubt and self-criticism. In that moment, she decided her voice would not only be heard, it would echo. But as she stepped back to view their creation, a new thought snaked into her consciousness. Would the world accept her? Along with the anticipation of the exhibit came a creeping sense of impending judgment. The canvas stood as a flawed yet honest reflection of herself, and now she had no choice but to confront it. With one final deep breath, she whispered to herself, "I am ready to rise." But little did she realize, an unexpected challenge awaited her that could either shatter her resolve or fortify her spirit. In the silence, as the sun broke free of the horizon, Mia questioned whether she could truly confront the world. Would it be an unveiling of triumph, or yet another reminder of her fears? The question hung like a dark cloud overhead, a prelude to the chaos that would soon unfold. The day of the exhibition dawned, wrapped in a soft haze that hinted at the promise of transformation. Mia stood in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back with a mixture of resolve and anxiety. This day was not just about unveiling art. It marked the culmination of her personal evolution. She inhaled deeply, allowing the anticipation to merge with her trepidation. Today, she would finally step fully into her identity, unshackling the fears that had weighed her down for far too long. As Mia arrived at the venue, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. People gathered, voices intertwining as they exchanged stories, laughter, and their own struggles. It was a vibrant tapestry of diverse narratives, but amidst it all, Mia felt like a solitary figure at the edge, fearful to step into the light. The images of her past whispered echoes of doubt, yet a flicker of determination ignited within her. Philip caught sight of her and grinned, his excitement infectious. "They're ready for this, Mia! This is your moment!" His unwavering belief in her potential created a warmth that bolstered her spirit. With every passing minute, an exhilarating awareness composed her heart and mind. It was time to embrace her narrative, and every stroke of honesty would cultivate courage in others, echoing beyond the confines of the gallery. The moment arrived when they would unveil their collective masterpiece. For Mia, standing beside Philip felt like a partnership grounded in vulnerability and shared strength. She took a deep breath, connecting to the energy in the room, the clattering of expectations shifting to a soft murmur of curiosity. As the curtain pulled back, gasps of astonishment filled the air. The canvas unveiled a poignant landscape of her journey, a vivid swirl of shadows and light entwined, each hue encapsulating a chapter of her struggles and triumphs. She could see not just her journey, but Philip's own mirrored within them, both of their vulnerabilities exuding from the surfaces. Then came the questions, the audience's eyes glimmering with contemplation, empathy, and intrigue. She felt each inquiry unfurling around her, a reflection of their curiosity and their journeys. Mia's heart raced as she began sharing her process, the depths of her darkest moments illuminating the growth shared between her and Philip. With every answer, her voice gained strength, a steady rhythm countering the tremors of fear that once threatened to silence her. "We created this together, as a reflection of not only our struggles, but our growth," she explained, allowing the sincerity of her story to resonate. "It's raw, it's messy, but isn't that what makes us human?" With every utterance, she felt barriers break down, not just for herself, but for those listening. People approached her, some seeking to share their own stories in response. It was in these exchanges that Mia felt a powerful shift. Her narrative had sparked a wave of understanding that transcended beyond an art exhibition. It connected hearts. As the evening progressed, a woman stepped forward, her eyes brimming with tears. "You've given me permission to embrace my own shadows," she confessed. Those words reverberated deep within Mia, sending ripples of warmth through her core. This was what she had longed for, to be seen and to truly see others in return. Mia realized she had finally stepped beyond the confines of her fears. With every conversation, she was conquering the very demons that once bound her. She was no longer the fragile girl struggling for visibility. She was a voice enriched by experience, courageously dismantling her past and transforming it into a beacon for others. Philip, standing beside her, radiated admiration. "You've done it, Mia. You turned your vulnerability into power," he said, his gaze unwavering. In that single moment of recognition, Mia felt a wave of pride wash over her. She had achieved not only personal growth, but a recognition of what it meant to share her truth, even in its rawest forms. She had crossed the threshold of fear, cultivated compassion, and inspired others to unmask their own hidden stories. As the evening wrapped, Mia stepped outside, looking up at the stars punctuating the night sky. They weren't just shining fragments, they were symbols, stars of hope representing new beginnings, dreams realized through shared struggles and partnerships. With a profound sense of fulfillment, Mia understood that this journey was not just about overcoming fear. It was about connection, transformation, and the beauty of shared humanity. Standing in the energy of countless possibilities, she felt solid confidence solidify within her, a competence she had once thought unimaginable. Her heart swelled with pride, not only in her accomplishment, but in how much she had grown. She no longer needed to fear judgment or retreat into the shadows. Today marked the beginning of a new story, one filled with light, shadows, and the undeniable strength of vulnerability. This was who she was meant to be, not just an artist, but a bearer of truth, standing tall, ready to face the world with a voice that would resonate. Now, dear viewers, this is your moment to align with the journey of personal overcoming. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next. Exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. This truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.